American was market. I did this guy and didn't have a photograph of him. So they showed me that recently positive scan. But information using I would just have a lot more learning than I am. How can I put some hold up and we started Mr. Reed, you see again, selection here, if you can tell me what kind of lifts that is. Yeah, we have 4 lifts. We have 2 lifts. No, we had here on both sides of the head. We got it done. With the West 38 gallon stuff on people, revolve. Lips.
We decided that wasn't going on in our family.
But shopping for life insurance can be almost as difficult as talking about it.
Those life insurance, really new with the life insurance. Though for people on a busy schedule, we don't have time for unnecessary doctor's visits, fine print, or hidden fees. No, we want to keep it simple.
I couldn't believe how easy it was. We answered a few basic questions, and within minutes, we had an estimate of what it would cost us. What sort of policy makes sense for us?
Life insurance to be so affordable
And accessible.
the peace of mind knowing that our future is secure. It just removes a lot of the fear and get there. I'm glad we talked about it.
I'm glad we went with people's lifetime.
Hey Siri. Hey Siri.
I'm going to start the meeting with a pledge of allegiance. I want to welcome everybody, and Charlie, I'm sorry you're at. Can you do the help of the audience introduction?
Charlie Swan, principal of DES. Chris Arujo, Dixfield, father of 2.
Bethany Meehan Poulin, Dixfield, parent and taxpayer.
Lisa Keim, Dixfield, taxpayer.
Trish Benson, Dixfield, parent of students.
I'm Heidi Broomhall. I'm a staff here, member here at the high school.
Vance Child, taxpayer.
Kathleen Crocker, live in Dix.
Frank Rangel, father of 4 and taxpayer, East Dixfield.
Pamela Ringel, I have 2 kids in RSU56. Tessa LeClaire, I go to Dargo High School.
Erica Chamberlain, Dixfield taxpayer.
Marianne Hutchinson, Rumble Falls Times.
All right, thank you and welcome. We have some adjustments to the agenda. Motion to approve the following. You can. Who do I have online? Tina, can you mute? Okay, thank you. And you can see the adjustments. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Dawn, Yes. Larry, Joy, Kathleen, Tim,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yeah.
Brad,
Yes.
Liz. Yes. Deanna.
Yes.
All right, consideration of the minutes of the September 12th, 2023 board meeting. Could I have a motion, please? And a second? Comments, questions, or any revisions on the minutes? Seeing none, roll call?
Dawn, Yes. Larry, Joy,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
Liz. Yes. Deanna.
Yes.
Okay, this is a time for public comments. The public can make a comment respectfully. We do not mention employees. We do not. Got fly, sorry. If you have a comment, you need to come to the mic, state your name. Is there any comments online? Okay, anybody? Bethany, you coming up?
Hello. First, I wanted to just thank the board for the support of getting the girls soccer team reinstated this year. We had 18 girls, coach, 18 girls turn out for 8-man league this year. We almost have too many for 8-man league, which we'll take too many rather than not enough. And it's been really delightful to see the girls have somewhere to go, something to do after school. They're young, freshmen and sophomores primarily. So look for a gold ball, hopefully a few years down the road. So I did want to thank you. There was just one thing I wanted to address tonight that concerned me in the last meeting. There's all this talk about kind of putting to rest single-use bathrooms. And I want to talk to you about it from a different lens than probably what you think about it when you hear it. I am a mom of girls who have hated public restrooms since they were this tall. And to this day, both of my children would tell you they avoided using the restroom at school because when you go in to do your thing, there are other people in there, they're listening. It's not a comfortable experience. Now, as an adult, I've worked in business prior to working in education. I've worked in public education now for a number of years. There is not one job I have ever held where when I go to work, I am using a huge multi-stalled public bathroom. It's always single use. Unless I'm popping into Hannaford to grocery shop, in my day-to-day life, I have access to a restroom that's private and allows me to do my business without the world listening. And I know there's a lot of debate around single-use bathrooms, but I would just like to advocate that that does allow privacy and access for children for other reasons. And, you know, if that is something our school can get in so that our girls aren't trying to time when they're going, so it's not crowd, like the things that the young girls in my life, my daughter and their friends talk about in their day-to-day life, just trying to use a bathroom and feel safe and secure, it makes me a little sad. So if this ever becomes an option where we have the money and we have the support to do this, just think about it from the lens of the kids who just want a little privacy. I don't think that's a bad thing. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we're moving right on. Communications.
So we did have one piece of communication. I'm happy to say that Joy Jansowitz was nominated and selected to receive a 2023 MEPA, which is I'm going to say it correctly, Maine Psychological Association Educator Recognition Award. She will be recognized at the annual conference in November. Congratulations to Joy.
Thank you. New business. Approval of a club, which was in your folder, a craft club job description. And this came from the personnel committee. And you want any comments on this? I think we already discussed when we approved to change over from, what did we change from?
Early Act.
Oh,
Interact.
interact, yes. So could I get a motion, please? And a second?
Second.
Comments, questions? Oops. Comments, question, or revisions? Or not revision, any questions? Seeing none, roll call?
Dawn.
Yeah.
Larry.
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
Kathleen.
Yes.
Tim.
Yes.
Tina.
Yes.
Barbara.
Yes.
Brad.
Yes.
Liz.
Yes.
Deanna.
Yes.
Sorry, Natalie, would you like to vote?
Not voting, sorry, I just logged in and I was a couple minutes behind on that one.
Okay, thank you. PPEG overview, Charlie, did we get?
You did,
We didn't get anything. Okay,
no, it's a presentation and
okay.
I'm gonna wait for Jared to get that up and rolling.
For the new board members, will you explain
Yep.
what that acronym is?
And I'll explain that actually in the presentation here in just a second, but the purpose of me being here tonight is we have an evaluation system that we use. Each year I come to the board to just kind of give a brief outline of what it is. There's a lot of new board members, so I'm going to go into a little bit more detail tonight. I'm going to try to go through it quickly, but I'm also going to try to make sure I cover it thoroughly. So if you're wondering what the evaluation system is, I'm talking specifically tonight about teachers, but know that the administrator evaluation system runs pretty parallel to the teacher one. So pretty much it's hand in hand. So we'll get into it. Go ahead, Jared. So some terms to know as we jump into this. The first one is PEPG. If you were wondering what that acronym is that Barb asked, that stands for Performance Evaluation Professional Growth. So sometimes you'll hear us talk about our evaluation system and we'll say PEPG or we'll say PPEG. That's what we're referring to. So if you hear that term, it's connected to the evaluation system. SER is summative effectiveness rating. I'll go into more of what that is as we walk our way through this. So you may hear the term Marzano. It refers to an education researcher. His name is Robert Marzano, who came up with a set of standards that we use and have adopted for our teachers, administrators, and ed techs. There's another education researcher called Charlotte Danielson, and she wrote another set of standards, and her standards were pretty specific in the areas of nurses, librarians, school psychologists, and counselors. So those groups of people under our teachers contract, we've adopted the Danielson standards for them. And then finally, our eye observation platform is the digital platform that we use to store all the observation scores. It's where teachers go in to see the observations that have been done on them. Their evaluations are stored here. It was my goal at the end of this presentation to kind of give you a tour of eye observation, but I think I'll save that for a later date because I think this is going to go long enough and you'll be sick of hearing me talk by the end of it. So we'll save that for another time. But if you're really curious, like what is this technology platform that you keep all your stuff in and how does it work? I'm more than happy to share that at another time with you. All right, it's a brief history. It's not very brief, but I'm going to go quickly. So this started in 2014, Maine's Chapter 180. So we've been at this about 10 years. We actually started the process in RSU 10 a few years before that because we knew it was coming down the line, and schools, especially in Western Maine, started meeting together to prep for this new evaluation system. So I explained this, but basically by 2017, we had to have our system test piloted, approved, ready to go, rolled out, and starting it that year after a couple of delays from the state. The major thing right out of the gate that was fairly controversial was that it brought in a component called student growth, meaning that evaluation systems were going to partially be based off from student performance. And that was definitely the most controversial part of the plan when it came out. That has changed, that's been removed, and I'll explain that as part of our history too. So we established our plan in 10, our board adopted by the board in 2018 when we're under RSU 10. We've completed our first round in the spring of 2019. So when we became a district, we just pulled our plan from what we were using in 10. In 2019, our staff was given their first summative effectiveness ratings. And again, I'll talk about what that means a little bit more. Due to remote learning in the spring of 2020 and due to changes in state mandates regarding student growth component, the RSU56 school board approved removing the growth component. Basically, that lightning rod part was an issue all across the state. It had issues of fairness. It had issues of one group of teachers meaning or impacting more than maybe another group of teachers. And it was a very tedious and time-consuming process that took up a lot of valuable time for teachers and administrators. It was one of the more frustrating parts of the system. So our board in 2020 voted to remove that from our plan. All right, so the law, just basically, there's 6 kind of things that I teased out from the law that it said when you create your plan, it should have these 6 things. It should have a set of standards. Again, we use Marzano and Danielson. Must be growth-based evaluation system. And what that means is it can't be a gotcha kind of system. It's the intention of it is we want everyone to grow as professionals. The reason we do evaluations, the reason our teachers and our principals have goals is because we want them to be better each year than they were the year before. Must involve 4 category rating system, and I'll touch on that in just a minute. Must have at least 2 parts, a professional practice and a professional growth. We'll get into that in just a minute. Must have clearly defined plan that is communicated yearly to staff and training provided to all who need it or require it. It must have a committee comprised of teachers and administrators who monitor the plan and make the recommendation for improvements as needed. So hopefully those 6 things that are in your head now, as I walk through the rest of this, you'll say, okay, we have all 6 of those parts of the law. So our original plan, we had 3 parts. The professional practice, that's observations that administrators do. All right, we're back in business. So we had 3 parts originally. Part 1 was worth 50%. That's the teacher observations. Part 2 was worth 30%. That was the professional growth. That means the goals that they set. That's what we're talking about when we talk about professional growth. The third part was student and learning objective. That was worth 20%. That was the student growth part that was eventually removed. Our current plan still has 3 parts. The first 2 parts are the only 2 that have weight or count in terms of our evaluation system. So we shifted the 20% from the student growth into the professional practice. So the observation part is worth 70%. The professional growth part is worth 30%. The state in 2018-19 added that districts needed to include a mentee system as part of their evaluation system. Not a lot of guidance and direction as far as what that meant, other than it had to be a part. It did not have to hold any weight in the evaluation system, only that the district was providing those opportunities. So as we jump in the first part, as I said, it's worth 70% of their summative effectiveness rating, the professional practice. Involves multiple observations done by administrators. There are two types of observations that we do. We do formal observations, and these involve a pre and a post meeting. They're scheduled with the teacher and are typically a little longer in length. And then there are informal observations, which are shorter. They can be drop-in, they can be scheduled. Both of these types are worth the same amount. It doesn't mean a drop-in is worth less or more than the formal. It just means the procedure for them is a little bit different. And then the teaching standards are based on Marzano's Art and Science of Teaching, the focus model, and Danielson's standards for nurses, counselors, and librarians, as I mentioned. So the professional growth. So this is teachers creating their goals that they're going to work on during their evaluation cycle. This is worth 30% of their summative effectiveness rating. The score is based on staff growth on selected and approved goals. So once they select them and write their goals, they do have to be approved by their administrators. And then they are free to work on those during their 3 or 2 year cycle. It starts for the teachers, they take a self-evaluation, they score themselves on each of the standards, which ones they feel they're scoring lower on, better on, and then they select 2 of them that they want to work on, and then they create goals that are specific and measurable. Staff will collect the evidence saying that this is what I did to work on these growth goals over the course of the evaluation cycle, and they'll present those to their administrator at the end, and then their score for this will be determined from that. So part 3, this is the add-on part that's not worth anything, but we want to make sure that we're following the requirements. And also we want to make sure that we're doing good practice in providing opportunities for our staff to have mentoring. So this was started in 2018. Teachers are provided with the opportunity to be mentored, to mentor, or to engage in professional activities such as peer observations. And each year, the teacher is required to submit a peer mentoring form yearly to their administrator. So there is a form they fill out that says, this is what I did to fulfill this part of our plan. Again, this does not impact their score, summative effectiveness rating in any way. All right, so the math part of it is when you calculate the professional practice score at a value of 70%, and you combine that with a professional growth score valued at 30%, you get an overall score, and we call that overall score their summative effectiveness rating, or their SER. Their SER places them in one of 4 categories: highly effective, effective, partially effective, or ineffective. The length of their evaluation cycle, so if they are highly effective or effective, they will then go on a 3-year cycle. If they're partially effective, they'll go on a 2-year cycle. And if they're ineffective, they go on a direct improvement plan, and that could be a year, year and a half. It's really determined by the plan itself. So what about our probationary teachers, our teachers who are just starting? They will complete all 3 parts of the plan. So they will be on an initial 2-year cycle. If they are still employed with the district after that 2nd year, then they will, the SER they've gotten from that 2-year will become their next 2 or 3 years, depending on how they score on that. And then our probationary teachers will have 2 approved goals, just like all the other staff, but they'll work on them over 2 years. Most staff are working on them over 3 years currently. All right, so these are the changes that we've made to our plan since it started 10 years ago. It used to include that student growth component. Well, that has been removed, and we shifted the value of that component to the observation part. Changed the weight of the components. I just explained that. We've adjusted the rubric ratings for the different categories. That's one of the things I'm going to ask you to vote on tonight. The evaluation committee is downsized. When we first started, I think there was 25 or 30 of us on, but it was all of RSU 10. So we're considerably smaller now, but we still do meet 2 to 3 times a year. And initially we had a set of standards created by Marzano that had 60 something standards in it, and they were overwhelming. It was a lot. Marzano realized that, came out with a new product that has significantly fewer. I think it's 23, if I have the number right. So it was significantly smaller. So we adopted that and changed those standards along the way. We also changed and added Danielson standards. Basically, we had nurses and librarians using the same thing as teachers, and it didn't make sense. The standards were not compatible for them. So we looked at the Charlotte Danielson standards and said these make much more sense for these people that are under a teacher's contract, but doing kind of a different role in our buildings. That's our committee. We have 2 from each building, 2 administrators, 4 teachers. Again, we meet probably twice a year. Sometimes we sneak in a 3rd meeting. And really the role or job of the committee is to talk about the evaluation system, what's good, what's bad, what do we like, what do we don't like, what changes need to be made, all those things. We kind of have that conversation a couple times a year and just monitor how the process is going. And it's pretty low key. Again, we do have some recommendations for tonight that I'm going to bring forward here in just a second. And that's part of our role. All right. I went through a ton of information there in a short period of time, but questions that any of you have about our evaluation system that we used?
Brad.
A couple of questions that are tied together. Is the evaluation system, part of it determined by the teacher's contract? Is that part of it?
The teacher's contract, I believe, says that we need to have an evaluation system, but
Doesn't specify what. part it is.
What the system we've set up, Brad, was based off state law, and then also how we as a district kind of were going to move components within what we could do within the state law.
The other part, when we have what were the 3 tiers for evaluation as far as their performance level?
Sure. So there's highly effective, partially effective, and ineffective.
So highly effective and effective are tied together.
We tie them. Well, when I get to the recommended changes, you're going to see how they're tied together a little bit more. But generally speaking, our staff who are highly effective and effective when it comes to selecting their own goals, they have more personal leeway. If someone's partially effective or ineffective, the administrator may be a little more involved in, hey, these are the things I want you to work on, where there's more autonomy for those that have received that highly effective or effective.
Do those scores affect their pay raises?
It doesn't affect pay at all.
So it's not tied to pay in any way?
It is not. Nope.
And my last question is, I'm going to make an assumption that we're delivering a product, we're delivering educated children. Is there intent to tie that back to actual results? Because a 20% focus on results, it sounds like we're focused more on developing teachers and not developing children. Now, that's just my initial looking at this. Is there an attempt to put the children into it as a bigger focus?
So let me answer that in a couple ways if I can. So to clarify, right now, the student growth component is not part of the plan. It was voted out of our plan a few years ago by the board. And really the major reason for that was the system that we were working in for that was extremely time consuming, and everyone from administrators to teachers felt like there's better use of time for everyone involved in the system. There are parts of the standards that talk a lot about the standards that have a lot of focus on student outcomes. So a lot of the standards are focused on student outcomes. And so when we're scoring these things as administrators, we're not necessarily just looking at the teacher in front of us, but what the student in the classroom is doing and responding and reacting to the teacher. So it's embedded in the system. It's just not like it was based on this test, the state test. If this happened, then you're gonna lose this, or you're gonna gain this, or whatever it was in the past. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Tina.
Thank you. Okay, so these evaluations are strictly, how do they affect the teacher? How are they affecting the teacher? So if they're not doing as well as you had hoped, how does that reflect on the teacher? How is that?
So I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
Okay, so there are evaluations on the performance.
Yes,
And the performance has to do with different staff members and different roles.
yep.
Okay, so they're doing great, then that's great. How does that reflect on them? If they're not doing so great, how does that reflect on them? Is it just an evaluation for growth?
It is,
Okay.
it is mainly focused on growth, and that's that, hence the title. Like, that's our goal in this system, is that it will be focused on the people we hire will be better next year than they are this year.
So it's to help them
Yes,
evolve.
absolutely. Is there the component that if somebody's not kind of making it, then yeah, they will be reflected in there. And there's certainly different things that happen in terms of, all right, there's more observations, there's more time invested on the part of the administrator to try to help this person. But certainly if someone continues to struggle in that way, it, it could lead down a road of no longer being employed. But our goal is to retain our employees. We do a lot of work trying to get them to come to our district, and we want them here. And we really, that's our investment, really. So
Awesome, thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions? I have one quick one. You
Sure.
mentioned mentoring coming in 2018. Now, that's for all.
Yeah, that's for all. So we do have mentor mentee for our first couple years of somebody, and that's something we've done. We have an established program, and so there's mentoring going on with our new staff anyways. But this is for all staff, and it's really not that we've set up a mentor mentee thing for all staff. It's that we give opportunities for all staff to go visit a classroom, to have professional conversations with other teachers, to have conversations with other teachers, to talk about pedagogy with other teachers. So it's not set up like it is for the new teachers, Barb. It's not that structured.
Oh, so meaning if somebody wants, they just do it. You don't document it. You don't.
The only thing is they fill out a form each year that tells us what they did that year in terms of a mentoring connection or professional conversation or whatever they may have done. So some of our teachers lead professional development sessions. So that's not a direct one-on-one mentor-mentee, but it's certainly something they're providing a professional growth opportunity for staff.
Okay,
I have a question.
go ahead, Brad.
You're going to make some recommendations tonight, sounds like. Did we get those recommendations in advance?
No,
No, we did not.
They're embedded in this presentation, and I forgot to send the whole presentation.
And we're going to vote on these potentially tonight.
It's in there as a motion. You guys can decide
Yeah.
what you want to
if
do
you
with it.
feel
If
you
you want
want-
to, if you decide you want
I
to
would,
table
I
it.
would prefer not to vote on that tonight. Just my feeling until I read more of the presentation, and understand it a little bit better. Not to complicate it, but I this is important. I think we take a little more time.
All right, but please explain them. so
Sure.
we know.
Jared, you want to go into we're going to skip the tour of the eye observation. So we have 3 recommendations that we're making from this. The first recommendation is one of the things that has come out in our observation system, is that we have the observations, the number we were doing was pretty overwhelming. So it was creating more of a less high quality and more of a checkbox kind of thing. And we're trying to eliminate that. Like, we want this to be intentional and purposeful. So we want our observations to be meaningful. So this is the recommendation. Before, it was 6 observations for every category, regardless of what cycle you were on. So if you were a highly effective teacher, you got 6 observations. If you were a partially effective teacher, you got 6 observations. So what we're saying is that for our highly effective teachers, we feel that we should have a minimum, these are minimum, of 3 observations, with at least 1 being formal over their 3 years. So 1 a year, with 1 being formal over their 3 years, and that's a minimum. And the second one, for our effective teachers, there would be 4 over 3 years, 2 being formal, 2 being informal. And then our partially effective would be 5 over their 2 years, with at least 3 being formal. So that's one of the changes that the committee is bringing forth, is the change in the number. And basically, again, going back to the idea that not that our highly effective and effective staff members don't need as much support and guidance, but generally speaking, they're usually more veteran teachers who have been doing it a while, and there's a lot more a lot less need for maybe administrator to be in the room as much as maybe some of the ones that are partially effective. So our second change that we're asking for, and the top numbers you see here are the categories. So when they combine their scores, so when I go in and I score a standard, that translates to a number 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you combine that with their goal score and you get it all together in that summative effectiveness rating. So the top is what we have right now. And one of the things when we met as a committee, and we weren't unanimous with this, but we certainly came more to an acceptance of it from a committee. One of the things that our plan, when we removed our student growth component, we didn't make any adjustment to these categories. And by doing that, that made the system kind of a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but easier in many ways. And also we run on a system where if I score you on one of the standards and you get a 3, it will not go below the 3. It's not averaged. So it's not like I score you on this standard and you got a 3 this time, you got a 2 the next time. So now you're at 2.5. Once you've gotten a 3, you've proven you are at that level and it stays at a 3. So then that 3 goes into the system, not an average of all of them. So with those two things in mind, the committee felt like adjusting this so that the weights are a little bit harder, I guess is the best term to say there. But as you can see, moving highly effective, now to be a highly effective, you would have to score a 3.45 instead of a 3.26. To be an effective teacher, you would have to be at a 2.9 instead of a 2.75. Partially effective now, 2.5 instead of a 2. And then an ineffective would be below a 2.5 instead of below a 1.9. Sure. Yep. Yep. So under our first system, yes. Under this last system, we had quite a few that were in the highly effective range. And as I explained, when we removed the student learning part of it and made the system, we didn't really know the impact that was going to have. So we didn't adjust anything after that. So when we got to the end of our last big cycle, which happened last spring, we kind of looked at the numbers and said, okay, this seems maybe a little more realistic. 4 is the top. Yep. And then number 3, this one is fairly minor, but so we have our SMART goals that we create. And the main thing about a SMART goal, when teachers create the goals of the things they want to work on, is for us as administrators, we have to be able to measure those in some way. Because we can't just say, well, it looks like, or I feel like, or, and what I always tell my staff is, if I'm not the one sitting in this chair, when you come back to present on these goals, you want to make sure what you said is what you did, and there's no gray area there. So that's still embedded, but before we spent a lot of time going back and forth. They would write their goals. I would send them back and say, no, you got to reword this, and they'd write them back again, send them back. I'd send them back to them. And the process would take months, sometimes most of a year almost, just trying to get the goals crafted right. So what we decided as an evaluation committee is that we want to have a SMART goal, but we really want the specific parts to come in their action plans. So here's my goal, but my action plans are, these are the things I'm going to do to achieve that goal. And those are where we want to be really specific. I'm going to observe these classrooms. I'm going to do this activity. I'm going to do this, whatever it may be. Those are the specific parts. So it's not a major change. It's just a change in wording in our plan, but it is a change, and that's why I'm bringing it to you. We're still going to have it be in SMART format. Just the specific part is really going to be embedded in our action steps.
Liz, can you give everybody an example of what somebody might have for a goal?
Sure. I will do my best. So, somebody may choose a standard, like I use this, I just did a couple videos for the staff and put them out there, that one of the standards is that I want students to really understand that what I am teaching day to day actually connects to the learning target that I have. Like I put up this learning target, you know, we're going to be learning this. And then you get into lessons and sometimes it's not clear whether students are like, well, what I'm learning is actually connected to this thing. So I want to improve upon that. So I may say as a goal, during the 23-24 school year, I'm going to move from the developing level to the applying level on that standard. My action steps are going to be, I'm going to do 5 graphic organizers where I ask students to take our learning target in the middle and then draw a picture that represents each of the lessons that we do based on that. Or I might say, I'm going to develop a short assessment when I introduce a learning target. And then I'm going to do it at the end of a lesson that I've taught that's directly related to it. And I'm going to see, do students really get that what we're doing today is connected to this learning target we have? You're welcome.
Brad.
Absolutely. So I have a evaluation handbook that I can send to you, and it will have these highlighted changes in it because I highlight them. Yep. I highlight it before you guys approve them. And then once you approve them, I put them in there and take the highlights off and send it out to the whole staff. We do, Brad, have a 46-page one that was submitted to the state. That nobody, since I filed that thing with the state, nobody has used that. That's why we modified it to like a 3-page, because we took out a significant, like they wanted charts and different things that nobody uses, but. Yep, so it will have that part in there. The evaluation, it won't have the form. That's the platform, digital platform we use, but I can go through that at any point with anybody to walk through that. Yep, absolutely.
Does the state still have to approve it?
It's already been approved. It's approved locally now, Barb, by the school board. So as long as we still have those 6 components that I listed from the state in ours, and we're not changing away from that, the state, we don't have to have it approved yearly from the state.
Okay.
I'm not even confident that it was fully read, the first one, but it was approved. So
Yeah, I think it was, I remember.
there was a lot of districts and a lot of pages.
So Brad, it's not a motion, but do we want to table this or do you want to vote? Because it was under a voting action. So if I get a thumbs up to table it till you get it in the actual changes to it, I don't, and unless you all want how many pages?
The original one to the state was like 40 something.
No, the one that
Oh.
would show the changes, your presentation.
Yeah, I can send this presentation, which has this slide in it, and then Brad requested that I send him the
Yeah.
handbook, the PEPG handbook, which is,
So,
I can do.
okay, so I need to know the whole board's. No, I just can get a thumbs up. Who wants to wait?
I'm okay either way, Barb.
Okay, is that okay to wait till the next board meeting?
There's no, nope.
Okay, all right. So please put that on the agenda so you can get it done. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You shouldn't go far.
I'm not going far, just go to my
Okay.
computer.
All right, so we tabled that, and the next item is the request for a dean of students at DES, and we did have something in our folder.
Jared, I sent that to you a little bit after, so I don't know if you want to project that or share it so the people online can see it.
Nah,
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
document. It was a Google Doc that I shared with you. So let me just talk about the why before I talk about the what. And then obviously if you guys have questions, I'll answer those best as I can. So the why stems from when I first started at DES, I had an part-time assistant principal that worked with me, and I had a part-time secretary that worked in the building. Those two positions, for different reasons, have been eliminated. The student population is relatively the same. It's fluctuated from 340 kids to 409 kids at the highest at one point. What's changed really, and why I'm coming to you this year, is the nature of my staff has changed. I now have 8 or 9 teachers who are in their first 3 years of teaching. And when I first started, the majority of my staff were pretty veteran staff. And obviously over time that happens, retirements happen, people move on for various reasons. So because of that, a lot more of my time really needs to be invested in my young staff, my new staff in the building. If we want them to grow and learn, and if they want to feel connected to our school, that's really where my focus and attention needs to be, to support them. So that's the why. So the what is really, I call it a dean of student position, and it's really the convergence of 3 different areas: one clerical, one a little bit of guidance, and one a little bit of some assistant principal stuff. And hopefully that kind of came out a little bit in the description that I gave you. So the essential job functions that I'm looking for someone to help out would be helping to manage 504s, helping to create some scheduling stuff, master schedules, duty schedules, help with the organization and support of truant students and high absenteeism student. This is a big critical piece. Assist the building principal with minor non-suspension type behaviors. Now, let me describe in the elementary school what I mean by that. A lot of times we have kids who struggle in the classroom, and sometimes the teacher said, hey, go take a break in the office. And the kid doesn't want to take a break in the office. They stay right there. So if I'm not available, sometimes it's the secretary, the nurse, or somebody else will walk down, try to get that kid to come up and sit in the office and take a break. So just helping with some of those as much as possible, not with our major behavioral issues. Like if there's something that's going to warrant a parent call or something like that, that's something that I obviously would be involved with. So this was social media and family functions, and also being a member of our school's leadership team. So I asked for qualifications, a minimum of 3 years in the elementary school setting. I just think that you kind of need some background in the elementary school to kind of understand some of these roles. And this person would report directly to me. I would be their supervisor. The position is a stipend position. I'm not asking for a part-time or full-time position. It's meant to be a stipend position with no more than about an hour a day of our requirements from me. So that might fluctuate. One day it may be a little more, a little less, but basically focusing on about an hour a day. And the amount I have there is $6,500. And what I explained is for this year, looking to cover that, we had 3 veteran teachers that right during the summer had moved on to different positions. And we replaced them with 3 teachers who obviously came into our pay scale at a lower level. So certainly have the money there to cover this position for this year. After this year, it'll be a decision that we have to make whether we move forward with this in our budget or not. Questions?
Yes.
Go ahead, Brad.
2-part question, like Jeopardy, maybe not. Would you say that your primary role is to support and grow your staff?
Yes,
And is this going to help you do that and get better outcomes?
that is my hope. Yes.
Then I would support it 100%.
Any other questions, comments? Go ahead, Don.
I'm reading here that it's only going to be an average of an hour a day.
Yes, sir.
Is that going to give you much help?
You would be surprised what an hour of somebody helping somebody, 5 hours a week can really help you. Like I said, some days it's going to be more, some days it will be less. It's going to depend on the nature of the day. It's also going to depend on who actually fills in this position, because as you can imagine, if it's a teacher or something, we're going to have to be creative with their schedule, because I can't pull a classroom teacher away from elementary school students. And so some of it will have to be some creative planning. Some of it may have to be, the hour may have to be after the school day. If it's doing some, like the scheduling part and things like that, that doesn't necessarily have to be done in the building when students are there.
Tina?
So are you hoping where it's a stipend pay, are you hoping to pull someone in the elementary school to do that? Obviously not a teacher, because that would be difficult, but
It could be a teacher. Teachers do have planning time, and if that teacher was wanting to give that up to do this part, and then in addition, maybe some time after school, that could be an option. It could be somebody not from the school, but the big thing is I want them to have at least some knowledge and understanding of what an elementary school looks like and what kind of makes it go.
Pam?
As with any position, if this gets approved by the board, it would be posted and people would apply for it. And then Charlie would go through the process and pick the best person from the job, whether they're elementary, middle, high, or out of the district, in the district. He would look for the best person for the position.
Any other questions?
We do. Yeah. Yep. And so again, with the 504, it's not necessarily the person, the administrator still has to be in those meetings. I'm not asking for someone to take my place in the meeting. I'm asking for somebody to help with the writing of it, the note taking, some of the things that after you get out of the meeting, it maybe takes a little extra time there.
Do you need a motion?
Yeah, have we done all questions? Yep. Could I get a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve for this year, the Dean of Students for DES.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call?
Dawn,
Yes.
Larry, Joy,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Natalie,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Tina,
yes.
Deanna.
Yes.
Thank you, Charlie. All right. Kathleen asked a discussion, which I wrote on, I don't know where this lies. I like to have an agenda item on mask, and I assume you wanted to know what was going on in the state of Maine.
No. I'm very concerned. Dora Mills made a statement in mid-August that COVID is a fire that is circulating the globe and we have to keep putting water on it. So I would like this board to weigh in on fear-based or fact-based response to COVID. And there are, I think all of us have done independent research, and we know more now than we did like a couple of years ago. And I think the lockdowns are very damaging to our students in all different ways, educationally, mental health. And we know that the COVID vaccines neither prevent infection or transmission, that there's not a study or a consensus that masks work even. And so I would like to make a motion. Okay.
Sorry, I don't know what you want to motion to be. Because right now, there is nothing that we have gotten from the state on anything to close, to masks, so I don't know what board action you seem to think we need.
Well, I would hope that we would preemptively have a discussion, and the motion I would ask that the board of RSU stand against school closings at this time for any health emergency, as well as social distancing mandates for COVID vaccines and mask wearing. And we will continue to monitor changing circumstances and act accordingly.
Okay. Since it's not an agenda item and it's not something, because I don't know how the whole board feels. I have no interest in doing that.
Yep.
Because I look for data. And I also know as a school board member, when the law tells me to do something, we do what the law tells us to do. Did we like it? Absolutely not. Did the kids like it? Absolutely not. But that's what we are. We are a legal board. So I just don't think, I mean, we can vote, we could put it in this agenda item and vote and say, okay, we state our opinion. But that doesn't mean the full board, because it's the board like you want a board decision. So that means a board majority. So I just would like to hear from other board members.
I have something to say. You guys know my opinion mostly on COVID.
Absolutely, I do.
Yeah, and I won't go into a dissertation about it for everybody's benefit. I would argue that what was ordered during COVID was not a law. There are no laws in the books that require masking and closing and social distancing. That was never real. That easily provable, by the way. So we're not talking about statutes that were passed. We could argue all day long about whether the legislature had the authority to lock anybody down. I mean, my feeling on this, if it came to a board action, that I would, under no circumstances, support masking, social distancing, school closures for any other reason than we had an anthrax attack or some other actual physical emergency. And I can only speak for what I know. I've talked to a lot of people in this community. It was destructive what was done. I think that the board, and I don't remove myself from that responsibility. I think all of us had responsibility in the impacts it had on our children. I think that we didn't show courage when we should have. I have a son that graduated in 2020, and I will tell you the sum total of his year and all of the responsibility he had was to create a slide, one slide that allowed him to graduate, and it's disturbing. So I would agree, Kathleen. I think that we need to be aware that this is probably coming. And I would say that if it does, I would certainly vote without question negative on any motions to do what we did the last time. So,
Tina.
So I work in the medical field every day, and we do have a few more cases of COVID, but this is the way it's being treated in hospitals. It's like the flu. They're put in a room, they're given a mask. We wear a mask when we go in there. We wash our hands when we're done, and then they go home. That's how it's being treated right now, because the vaccines have not been proven effective. We can get them sometimes, it's just like getting the flu shot. Sometimes it's going to be effective, sometimes it's not. They're picking, they're choosing, they're hoping they get the right strain. But I would not support school closing either.
Liz?
No, I
would not. Liz, and then I'll do Natalie.
I agree. I wouldn't support it either.
Natalie?
So, yeah, I just wanted to chime in. I don't think there's probably anybody that's going to be really excited or support school closures and masking again. That being said, I really at this point think it's probably a non-issue. I do think that we see an uptick in cases. I got online earlier just out of curiosity to see, and it looks like, I can't remember if it was today's date or probably it was yesterday's, there were about 118 positive cases, it looks like, new cases reported on the main CDC website. And if you just looked at that snapshot of the last 30 days, it looks like, wow, okay, we're on an upswing. But if you put it in comparison to where we were a year ago at this time, there were 354 positive cases. I did a little bit of research online, and I'll confess I didn't spend a tremendous amount of time fact searching and looking through things, but I found quotes from the main CDC calling this an uptick, not a surge, noting that there are a lot of tools out there. I think, yeah, we're going to see an increase in cases. We're going to see RSV cases. We're going to see flu cases. We're headed into that season. I guess maybe I'm naively optimistic. I really don't think that we're going to see as a state discussion on mandates coming back at this stage. I think there are tools out there for those that want to vaccinate or whatever they choose to do to manage this. So I guess I, as a board member, would not be voting in favor of mandates again, but I guess at the same time, I think this is maybe a bit premature of a discussion, and I don't think we need to take an action at this point.
Don,
I just say that I don't understand why we're even talking about this right now. You kind of jumping the gun because right now we don't have any big outbreaks or anything else. It's not gonna go away. We went through this for 2 years. And I would say that if it comes back as hard as it was before, that's when we should be addressing this, not now. I'd vote against it all the time.
Larry,
I have about a 5-minute response to this. It's a pre-written response. Tonight, we have a small majority trying to change what they perceive is the best interest of all of RSU56. They're playing chicken little to try to scare us. Once again, the sky is falling. Mask mandate? What mask mandate? It does not exist at RSU56, but in the future it might. But then again, I might win the lottery in the future, but I'm not going to go out and buy a Lamborghini in false hopes that I might get the big one. The focus of the school board tonight should be on the concerns of our students. That means to pay attention to what the students and teachers are saying and doing what the school board directors were elected to do. The mask mandates have nothing to do with the priorities of the school board tonight. RSU56 has concerns that are more important for the well-being of our students and should be the center of our attention. So what is the function of the school board? Just a mere 2 board meetings ago, we heard from the Maine School Management Association who gave the school board workshop. And on page 1, school board powers and duties category number 2 is stated, quote, the board is responsible for acquiring reliable information, and I'll address that afterwards, from responsible sources, which will enable it to make the best possible decision about the scope and nature of educational programs, unquote. Does mask mandates fall under this description? When mandates were enforced, COVID did exist, and it still does exist. But so does diabetes, cancer, asthma, but we take precautions for these without hesitation or question. According to the New York Times, September 25th, 2023, the latest data from September 9th, 2023, the daily COVID hospital admissions of Maine, what Don was alluding to, 70 and above, 6.1 per 100,000, 60 to age 60 to 69, 1.3 per 100,000, all ages 1.2 per 100,000, and under 60, 0.5 per 100,000. The daily average is 18 cases. It seems very timely that we're here discussing mask mandates at the same time the CDC introduced a new preventative COVID vaccine to fight against the newest variant, not unlike the flu vaccine, fighting against its newest variant. Mask mandates might be a topic in the future, but there are some real concerns that the school board should be addressing at school board meetings in the present. These are just some of the talking points that some of the talking points that were addressed in Jason Long's Maine Integrated Youth Health Survey presentation on October 2021. Under 10 examples comparing DH Dirigo High School with the state, here are just a few examples. Students who were reported with a body mass index of over 85%, which means overweight and obese, Dirigo 39.6%, Maine 30.9%. Students who have reported who have lived with an adult who had problems with alcohol or drugs, Dirigo 47.2%, Maine 32.8%. When students were asked about vaping, marijuana, and alcohol, have you ever used a vape? Dirigo 42.8%, Maine 31.7%. Vaping in the past 30 days. Durago, 28.8%. Maine, 17.4%. Alcohol used before 13. Durago, 17.1%. Maine, 11.1%. Marijuana used before 13. Durago, 14.9%. Maine, 5.7%. Jason's report stated Durago students are generally typical of math students, but significantly more than are impacted by substance abuse. But once again, we're distracted. I once again refer to the duties and powers of the board. The board is responsible for requiring reliable information from responsible sources. Janet Mills, Dora Mills, an executive Maine Health, recently told the same paper that, quote, COVID is a fire that is circulating the globe. Where did we hear that tonight? I'll tell you where we heard it. We heard it from somebody that's quoting the High Wire. It's not the first time she's quoted that either.
Respectful.
I
Larry.
apologize for that.
Thank you.
Media bias and fact checks overall says the High Wire is a strong conspiracy and a quackery level pseudoscience site based on the routine promotion of unproven claims. We also rate them in the low factual reporting due to the promoting propaganda not aligned with the consensus of science and several failed fact checks. The sky's not falling, but our students and teachers are saying out loud what is important. The taxpayers of RSU 56 deserve better. But most of all, teachers and staff deserve better. The school board, in conjunction with all parents, need to focus on what is important today, not what might happen in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Joy?
I think what Kathleen is trying to ask, she was voted in by taxpayers of Peru, and she's questioned by them and asked to find out by them. That's her job from being voted in, is to answer to those people. And she'd like to know what that, what the school board's opinion or how they stand on that. So she can go back and tell them, okay, we brought it up in school board tonight. Then nobody's for closing down the school for another COVID end of, that's, I don't think she's out to say, this is something that might happen in 2 weeks. No, but she has people that she has to answer to.
And you also got to remember when we did the training that there's a balance between who you're answering to and the kids.
Right.
And the parents,
But
which
she
is
just wants to know
yes.
where everybody
And
stands.
I think everybody gave their answer.
Yep.
I think there was some that, they say, if it comes to that, but I think most know right now, we don't have an issue right now. Like Tina said, I was in the hospital last week in ICU and I didn't have to mask up. I just feel
It's been answered.
it's been answered.
I
Yes.
had something I want to add if I could.
Go ahead.
Speaking directly to Larry without judgment about the thought processes, I think it is the purview of the board to decide what happens within the schools as it relates to our actions for the safety of the kids. I would argue that it is not our decision, but a parent's decision to deal with vaping, alcoholism, all of the other issues that really exist and probably started at home and didn't necessarily start at school. And then to your response, Barb, we have no responsibility to make sure that the kids' needs are heard. And I want to specify what I'm talking about. We have evaluation process for teachers not tied to results with kids. Okay, we have dollars paid to teachers that are not tied to performance. And I say that because I believe it, but maybe there's more that I need to learn, and I'm open to that. We spend a lot of time getting training from this board association to tell us what our authority is and isn't. And there are some things that are very clearly in statute within our authority and things that aren't. I think it's totally appropriate that the most profound government action ever taken in America related to lockdowns and masks that started March 17th of 2020. That's March. And here we are in October. And we went through multiple years of this. It's totally appropriate to bring up. I realize we don't have anybody out there saying lockdowns are coming in 2 weeks. And yes, I think we should address it then. I would be concerned that we're spent a lot of time talking about what the board's authority to talk about is and isn't. And I answer specifically to the taxpayers in this district. I don't answer to the children. I don't answer to other board members. I answer to the taxpayers. Ideally, we want everybody's feedback, but in the end, as a board member, we have to make judgment based on what people are asking us, what we're hearing, what we know, what we think we know. And I think it's important to respect the fact that every board member has their opinion about things, and not spend any time necessarily denigrating
Is there a
them.
point here?
There is, Larry. And I think it's about being respectful to other board members' opinions. So I would say that generally everybody's pretty respectful to each other. And we have to listen to things that we don't want to listen to. So I think it's important that we remember this board is the decision-making body for the school unit. And if a board member brings something up, it should be respected. You have to agree with it. They gotta respect the fact that they can say it. Thank you.
I make a motion, we move on.
Well,
I would just like to say our main responsibility is to the kids, the benefit of the kids. And so that's it. Yeah.
So, all right. Next one is, she did not get to ask the policy meeting.
Barb, your mic went out a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Mine,
Gotcha.
I didn't turn it on. Sorry. Thank you, Natalie. Was the placement of board member comments? We didn't get to it. Policy, we will next week. I did look, Natalie. It was, oh. Oh, are you scared of spite? It went that way. Okay. All right, you're my sister. Kid doesn't like spiders. It was that way in RSU 10. So I will bring it to policy. That was the second thing on the list. So we'll get to that. The next is delegate to the MSBA, which every year the Maine School Board Association has a delegate assembly during the conference, and it's in the afternoon. Well, no, it wasn't. They changed it. Well, they have it scheduled, and what they do is, which we will review, is they have resolutions and they go through the resolutions. People talk, people go. Sometimes the resolutions are edited, sometimes they're voted down. It is quite lengthy, but if you're involved, you like the politicalness, not the politicalness, but the legislation piece of it, of the board. I mean, state board, it really can be. So does anybody want to do it?
I nominate Barbara Chow.
No, if I can get somebody else to do it.
When is it scheduled for? How often is it something? with you
Saturday
people?
morning, September.
It is,
25th.
it is it's Zoom, isn't it? Oh, hallelujah. Oh, thank God. Because it can be lengthy. I think, and also besides being the delegate, we used to have where someone was involved with the, keeping up with the legislature things, what's coming down the pike. I mean, all of you do get them news things, because it will tell you what's going to be up for legislation, what was passed, what wasn't, what's tabled. So that would be, so would you be willing, Tina?
I would be interested. I just need to double check dates.
Okay.
Oh, what time?
9.
And it's several.
It's on
hours, right?
October 21st, is that right?
That's what Kathy said.
Yeah.
Well, Tina, can you get back to us?
I can get back to you. I know that I'm scheduled that day for something I can't rearrange.
Oh,
But I would be interested going forward.
okay.
This one I can't get out of, so.
I will do.
So, thank you, Kathleen. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that Kathleen serve on the MSBA or
The MSBA
the
delegate.
MSBA delegate.
Can I have a
Second.
second? Okay, comments or questions? You do, it'll be on Zoom and they'll send you, we'll inform them and they'll send you the link.
It's like 10 hours on Zoom.
Well, it wasn't that
over
bad. It was
3
like
days.
12. We could always mute it sometime. though, I
If
did say.
you are going physically to one at some point and want me to come, let me know.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just a one-time thing though, right? Each year? It's just
It
a
is, but I
one-time
wouldn't
meeting?
mind any,
All you.
yes. So I got a motion. Did I get a second? Roll call.
Dawn,
Yeah.
Larry,
No.
Joy,
Yes.
Kathleen.
Yes.
Tim.
Yes.
Natalie,
Yes.
Barbara.
Yes.
Brad,
Affirmative.
Liz.
Yes.
Tina.
Yes.
Deanna.
Yes.
I have a question about the conference. I didn't see any cost anywhere.
So there is a cost, and if anybody wants to go, just let Kathy or I know, and we'll get you signed up and we pay the cost because it's in the budget for
Okay.
board professional development.
Okay, thanks.
Really like it. Because the lawyers are there, there's a lot. I said, I like it. The policy, the only thing they do is the ABCs of it, which is a good conference. Charlotte Bate does it. It's telling you about the beginning and how you do it. So that one is actually very good. I have been to that numerous times. Is the review of the proposed MSBA resolutions. Excuse me. And what we usually do each year is I got them here, is this would give Kathleen an idea of how the board is nay or yay on these resolutions. I think if I can find usually the crossed out, you can see what they cross out, but then you go to what's before it, what is, like, for example, on the first page, they took that out because it's in another section. So that's not the resolution. The third page is career and technical educational opportunities. So in the revision, they actually added transportation and equipment. What we do with the resolutions is the national, it's not national, Maine, they take them to the legislatures and try to get that change. Basically, the first one is, how many years ago, Pam, did they start doing, both CT start doing their own budget? Few years ago, because they used to be incorporated.
Yeah, it was after we became RSU56, so it was within the last 5 years that they got their own budgets.
And they are they under essential programs and services too or not? Well, however they do their budget, they started out with a big amount and they go little and they go little and they go little. And what's underlined is what they're included to include transportation and equipment. That's the change, I am presuming. So that's the first one. Anybody have Any issues with that one? We could do a thumbs up or so Kathleen knows how our board feels. Just to add that. Yeah, okay. I don't think anybody has any issues with that one. All right, now the next one, staff relationships. I do know that it's not meet and consult. We always, the staff, well, besides a meet and consult, the staff always is privy to any proposals on their, what do you call it? They see them. There's always input, and specifically say, for example, like we're gonna be doing a first reading on administration of medication. That came from the nurses. They give their input because that's their job and they get the new rules and we review, they send us a recommendation. So I think so that is the process. Anybody have any questions or concerns about this one? All right, so that one seems thumbs up. Professional development. I don't know what they amended. I think maybe because they're deleting stuff in it. Am I right? Pam?
It says that it would delete the following. from
Oh,
that.
so it's only the part is the same. They're just deleting 2B, 3B. 2B, 3E. Any questions or concerns over the deletions? Okay, I don't think so. And I think 2B, 3D is deletions too? Yes. Any questions and concerns on that one? I don't hear any on that one. Okay, the next one is school district collaboration, previously school choice.
So who is proposing these?
And that's why the main school board association, this is all It's resolutions, deletions, revisions. And what they do is if we usually get our board, each board will look at it, say, okay, nay or yay, bring recommendations, because Kathleen will see at the meeting, you will get difference of opinions and revisions. That's what makes it sometimes very lengthy.
Mhm.
Any concerns or questions with this one?
No.
Okay, now D is new proposals. So this is probably the ones you'll get the most nonpartisan school board.
I disagree with this one because I feel like this is targeting different people. Personally, that's what I think on that one.
So reading this one is nay or yay, because she will vote accordingly. And if there's any revisions,
I vote nay just on that particular one because I feel like it targets and they're making it more political than it needs to be. They're bringing it in, yeah.
okay. Don?
I would vote against it, but for the simple reason. State is always telling us we don't have any obligation to the town or the taxpayers, and I disagree with that 100%. And I did find a law that states that when you are elected, you do not cut your affiliation with the town, and you do have an obligation to the taxpayers. Now, I know we're indoctrinated a little bit differently, so I would not ever go along with that.
Okay, so I'm gonna nay, if you want nay, thumbs up. Yeah, I know that's the opposite. Okay. Okay. Natalie?
I'll go with a consensus on this one.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the next one, I don't know if any of you guys read the paper today. In the local section, Turner had discussed this one, must have been yesterday. They revised it. So,
This one is a little contradictory to me, only because it's essentially encouraging parents to be engaged, which is great. But my view, my personal view, is that parents are kept out of quite a few things when it comes to their kids in school nowadays. And so I don't really understand what the point of this particular one would be. Because I agree that parents should be actively engaged, but I think they should be actively engaged in the mental health of their children too. And I think no matter how the child is feeling or doing, they need that support at home. And if they're blocked out of it, then the parents can't, they don't have the opportunity to provide that. So I would think a revision would be great on that.
and I do know, if I remember one, it was the I think it's that one. The Turner one was that parents have being involved in, or have they're not, parents have, they are in charge of their child's education.
Well,
You
yeah,
know, like where
parental
they go to
rights are
school and
important,
things.
And that's blocked out a lot in public schools, and to me, that's unacceptable. I mean, because if my child feels a different way, I need to know so that I can help them on whichever is best for them and how they feel.
Okay. I think you've gotten an idea on that one, and I think there will be discussion on that one. Because they already are, actually, we may get it, because I think they were going to send it out to all board. The Turner was. Okay, is that the last one? Yes, and I gotta read it.
I personally like this one. I think the schools do need support. It kind of goes back into what we were talking about earlier about how COVID affected our children mentally with the shutdowns and stuff. And I think the kids really do need that support. So if we could get state funding to help pay for that, I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, because the essential program and services are very limited
Very
for
limited.
guidance. They're limited even for nurses. They're
Oh,
limited
that's
for, you know, there's a lot of what they reimburse us for, and the amount of the amount they say that they're supposed to serve is not realistic.
I'm kind of not sure how I feel on this one, because I think that we've made, and I feel like I have to be clear, newspaper left, so I probably won't be quoted wrong tonight on this one, but I think that we've made mental health, especially, and it was actually really great to verify we don't have a social emotional learning curriculum here, essentially with a ton of focus on mental health. It's not to say that we shouldn't be helping kids, because I'm someone that came up in a poor, always had a school counselor. The school counselor is a little different than a therapist or a social worker, but I think this is a slippery slope. And I think that if we invite too much state involvement in the mental health of our kids, then we cede responsibility to the state for that. I don't think there's a teacher here that really cares to spend all their time dealing with the mental health of children. I think it's hard to deal with, but I think we ought to be careful. Be specific about the resources that we need, I guess.
Any other comments, questions on that one?
I share Tina's concern. I'm very concerned about mental health being added on to schools, like counseling and non-parent involvement. So that's a concern for me, and I share Brad's concern that the more we allow the state in, the parents get potentially pushed out.
I think though, with this last one on the state funding, I think it's more of a funding to help the schools, because if you ask any of our principals, they've had a real uptake in mental health issues with students in our schools right now that are really struggling or that had setbacks during the whole COVID thing. And they really do need that support, and they don't have that. They're trying to do all of that on their own, especially in such a small school like this. We don't, you know, that's like, if you remember back our last school board meeting, and Jason was talking about how he really needs that. He doesn't need, you know, a vice principal or, you know, a guidance counselor. He really needs a social worker because of what he's dealing with. But I think that would help fund those things that they need. That's just what I.
Can I add to that unless somebody else has a comment?
Oh, go ahead,
I just
Joy.
have a question. When you receive this funding from the state, is there stipulations connected to the funding? Are they?
Well, what we do is they have a set budget thing, essential program and services. And for each, you have to have for nurse, what is it? One in every 300 kids or something. Like right now, we have 3 nurses, but next year that one runs out, so we'll be back to 2 where one does 2. They only allocate, which means they'll give us the money back, meaning we wouldn't have, what's it called? What's the one that's not funded? The additional local. So, because I do know, Charlie, can you explain? I know you have, because I know that has been your focus to get more, you have them come from outside. Can you explain that better?
Thought I was done talking tonight. That's all right. So we have a guidance counselor who does guidance lessons within the class. She also has office hours where she meets with kiddos, small groups. But we also hire from Oxford County Mental Health. We have a partnership with them. And this really started 4 or 5 years ago. We had a lot of kids who were in some pretty extreme crisis situations that were playing itself out at school. And so this person from Oxford County Mental Health is a crisis counselor. And they are in our building 3 days a week. They assist us with any crisis type situations, but they also assist us with supporting kids who just need a break or need to talk, or sometimes a parent will say, hey, I need someone to talk to my kid about this, or my kid's struggling at home. Can they talk to a counselor at school? Those kind of things. So right now it is 3 days a week with Oxford County Mental Health that we have this contracted service with.
So this would potentially help to provide more help.
So we did have 2, just for clarification, last year, we had 2 counselors. We had Rachel Buck and Aaron Muller, but Rachel Buck's position was a COVID funded ESSER position that was still available this year, but the high school counseling position, which was a more permanent position, came open. And obviously for somebody that wants to keep getting paid, that was a little more attractive. So we then went back to our, knowing that it was just going to be this year, we went back to our contracted service with Oxford County Mental Health.
Okay, so would this potentially, this would be potentially just for a little while funding versus a permanent thing that the state might continue to do?
So I think that would depend on how the state decided to fund it or not.
Okay.
And I just want to be clear that this may not mean we have more social workers. What it would mean is they would fund the ones we have.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
right
That's
now,
still helpful.
yeah, because
Okay.
right now I think it's like you can have one social worker for every 250 kids or something. They have a ratio, and so we fall in this weird difference that, some of
Right.
our schools wouldn't qualify for one, but we can't really run a school without one right now. So
Right.
we have more than the ratio for our essential programs and services for RSU 56.
I have a question.
Yep.
First thing, does, short of concerns about physical abuse, you might get a social worker involved if teachers feel like there's physical abuse going on. Are the parents engaged when a counselor gets involved with a child?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, our practice is that the counselor or myself will communicate with the parent. Oftentimes, like I said before, a lot of times the parent is coming to us saying, hey, our somebody just died in the family or something's happened. My child could use a little extra support. Could the counselor meet with them temporarily? Or other times it does come to kids struggling behaviorally. We have a sport team in school. Okay, these kids are struggling behaviorally. What's part of the plan? Let's reach out to the parent. Are they interested in the kid working with a counselor or having social groups, we call them, learning how to interact with each other and kind of cooperate with each other. Yep.
Okay. So we all set with this one? All right. Thank you. You got your Thank you, Kathleen. All right, now I gotta find my agenda. All right, old business is Bruce on.
So Bruce is going to come to our first meeting of the month because
Okay.
they meet the first Wednesday of
Oh,
the month,
that's
and then he'll
true.
come to the next week and give his report.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
So I just, last time we talked about strategic planning and was directed that we wouldn't hire a outside person to do this. So I just put together this proposed strategic plan that I hope you had a chance to look at, just kind of identifying the need, the purpose, what the charge would be, and then kind of just putting out a framework, what would happen each month through this year to get to a final strategic plan. So I don't want to move forward without the board looking at it and saying if this is how they want to do it. If this is how they want to do it, then obviously then I will start getting out invitations or ways for people to volunteer. It's totally up to the board how you want to do this. I just figured if we're not hiring somebody, I needed to at least have a format that I can follow, a plan that I can follow for the year to help the district move through that.
Do you need help?
I will, whoever the committee ends up being, and this book that I read, and I've heard Andrew Dolph speak multiple times on strategic planning. He says the team should be like 15, but then we would have like a Friday evening or a Saturday morning where we could invite more people in, get more information, but they would be a core team and they would be doing the work. Like I would be kind of organizing things, but they would actually be doing a lot of the work.
So you'd set up like a chair and that kind of thing. You'd have to have some kind of structure.
Yeah, we'd have to see what the group comes together and, yeah.
Because when I saw this, I still thought one of those steps should be before, because I remember when he did it last time, even though we had someone come from outside, we came and we met and we had all different types, students, teachers, businessmen, community members, board members, the admin, and you got all the information and you were on that, Chris. And then there was a committee that reviewed everything and tried to incorporate and see. And I think we actually got back together once, anybody who was interested to see, to get the more input.
I think we ought to follow Pam's guidance on this.
Yep.
And then
Could we possibly get Andy Dahl to come and volunteer?
He used to be.
He's a
was
very
here.
busy man. I know I'm gonna see him again when I go to Rhode Island for the New England Association.
He was here. He should come back.
no, I will certainly volunteer to help in any way I can.
All right, thank you. So you good? All right, it's superintendent's report.
So at the last board meeting, I was asked how many students in our 4 towns are homeschooled. So I have that information for you. The number is 18. We have 4 from Carthage, 9 from Peru, 5 from Dixfield, and none from Canton at this time. And then to let you know that Brian will not be able to be here tonight, but he will come on to the next board agenda. We'll have 2 administrators report. And then I have some new hires. Kelly Skillen coming on at Derigo High School as an Ed Tech 1 in the ESSER 1-year position. Tammy Averill at the elementary school for Title I Ed Tech 3, also a 1-year position. And Marilee Colpitz, Derigo Elementary School for a Title I Ed Tech 3, 1-year position. And that finishes my report for the night.
Just a quick question. So what is the point of having or knowing how many homeschool kids we have and what is that?
I don't know. Somebody asked me for that
Don
information
wanted
last
to
time,
know.
so I just wanted to bring it.
Oh, okay. I was just curious.
Yeah, I asked for that.
Wasn't sure how it affected what we were doing. I was just curious.
And we will get, is it October, we'll get like a full report of how many kids we got, how many homeschool, how many, what do you call it? Superintendent's agreements, how many this, how many, because there's so many variety of options. All right, we don't have a student here.
No, she's working on the float tonight.
Oh, well, that's okay. It's pretty chilly. Policy committee did meet. We are going to meet before the next board meeting. Finance committee, Carl's not here and Mary's taking a vacation. So I think, Tim, you're on the finance.
Sign the warrants, first time.
Oh, thank you, Tim. All right, curriculum committee, Brad.
I'm the new chair, I guess, so. Not a very big update. But we had some discussion about what Jason Long had felt like were the challenges and what the focus should be. I think for my part, got some really great perspective on how we manage our resources, how we manage, and resources being our, if I'm accurate, Pam, more our physical materials, textbooks, things like that. I want to congratulate Pam and Jason, the administrative team, and anybody else involved for how they have been thoughtful about making sure that we're looking into the future and having the materials we need. Those have an expense. It sounds like we're going to learn it's not easy to decide what to do. And I would add that I was also very impressed to hear that we don't just take every other school unit and say, well, we'll just do what they do. It sounds like we've been very, it sounds like, Pam, your team has been very specific about making sure that we have this 5-year cycle where the legislature or DOE changes the standards, and it's frustrating. I know Jason expressed that when I was on the board last time. I don't think that's changed, but you guys have been very flexible in making sure that when those changes come, and a lot of times those changes are sadly very politically driven, and other things. It can be frustrating for a school to say, well, we just got into the groove of this, now you're doing this. So I was really impressed with that. And I would say what Jason had left us with a big focus is we really need a social studies history curriculum. In the research I did, that's not easy to figure out. You might think you know history, but curriculum and how that's presented is different. I see Pam smiling. You're like, yeah.
I just want to say that we have a social studies curriculum.
Yes.
It's the resources that we need to support.
Thank
that
you for
curriculum.
clarifying. It is an actual material. So there's some work being done on that. And that sounds like at this moment, that is going to be our focus, is to try to bring a sensible source material for it to be used from K through 12. So that's my update.
Thank you. Buildings and grounds didn't meet. Negotiations met. We're meeting tomorrow. Personnel, Natalie?
Yep, so we met a couple weeks ago. We sent out, or Pam sent out the minutes from that. So I hope everyone had an opportunity to review. I appreciate those going out. Just a few highlights from our discussion. We did look at, as our first meeting, kind of a review of our function as a personnel committee. We looked at policy. We did talk through job descriptions, and we're going to work towards getting binders of all existing job descriptions for the committee members, so that we have those to reference moving forward. We talked about our process when interviews are being set up. And at this stage, kind of our standard operating procedure will be that if an administrator is scheduling an interview, they will send an email out to the members of the personnel committee first, with the goal of getting someone that would be available to sit in on that interview. If we don't have a member of the committee, we've got 4 of us on the committee, and then, including Barb. If none of us are available to sit in on an interview, then we'll send an email out to the entire board. It is possible, certainly, to move forward with an interview if we don't have a board member present, but I think all of us feel like it's very valuable to have someone representing the board in the interview process as much as possible. So that's certainly our goal. 2 of the items that we talked about tonight were results from that personnel committee meeting, that being discussion on the craft club advisor and then also the dean of students. So we have another meeting set up for next month. I believe it's October 18th. And we're going to look at reviewing our hiring policies. We also are going to review coaching stipend positions. Nick has put together kind of a standardized set of job descriptions that we need to look through. And then we're also going to look at some of the, positions, or some of the responsibilities around getting job descriptions and things posted and out to the public. So a few things on the agenda. If there's anything that anyone else wants to bring, just let us know, but we're planning to meet October 18th at 3:00.
Thank you, Natalie. Ad hoc, Larry, it's this Thursday, isn't it? And I already told Jason it's game parade. And my husband is moose hunting, so that means I'm on my own. Oh, Lord. All right, board member comments. Go ahead, Brad.
I meant to ask this, and I would certainly understand if you need more time, Pam. You had mentioned that our truancy rate was what, 47%, which is gotta be frustrating, like crazy frustrating. Have you, I assume there's some contact with the parents, and why? Do you have some sense as to why? I mean, because you could go all over the place with why, but are they saying anything? Are they giving you reasons? Is it just they're not being responsible? I mean, that's a huge number.
There are various reasons for it. Some students we don't see for long periods of time, and there's no ability to make that connection. We send police. They may or may not be able to make connections. Sometimes it's sickness that they don't call in and tell us so they're out for long periods of time. So there's various reasons for it, but we have a process where we call if they are absent each day, and then if they reach a certain threshold, we call and have a meeting. They get a letter of warning, then we have a meeting. So there's lots of opportunity for communication, but doesn't end the situation or resolve the situations in many cases.
Is there any, other than the attempt at communication, like what would be the end result? At what point would you have to say enough for an individual student? Have you had to do that? Like, because there's consequences, right? Very legal consequences for parents.
So it's very difficult, at least at the high school level, to have those consequences come to fruition. I will just leave it at that. So it's a referral, so law enforcement, attorney general, DHHS, but it's becomes much more complicated at the high school level when they will mostly say to me, we don't chase kids of that age.
So I have a question kind of adding on to that. So for some of the students they're just gone for half the year or whatever, because of the No Child Left Behind Act, are they still being held back that year? Because that means they probably didn't complete their classes, correct?
So there may be retentions at the elementary and the middle school. At the high school, they simply wouldn't have enough credits to get to the next grade level. So they may be let's say they come back and they're a senior, but they would not be in line to be able to graduate because they wouldn't have enough credits.
So they would still be awarded the title of senior. They wouldn't be held back. They just wouldn't have enough credits.
We typically don't change their initial designation coming in. So if they come in as a freshman, but we don't see them, they come the next year, they're labeled as sophomore, but they're in the freshman classes and in the sophomore classes and trying to get them caught up. We will work with anybody who walks in and try our best to get them there. If not, at least set up to go to adult ed and finish up pretty quickly.
Okay. All right. If there need, I know we have policy. I know Jason worked very hard on a procedural piece. So if sometime we want him to come and review, because it is sad and it is, and we don't get the response, the legal response you would think you would get. And that's not a priority, which is sad.
It was, maybe it's a dumb question, but because you can't, like you say, make them on the high school level. I mean, they're a senior, but they can't graduate because they don't have, but is there any strategies, or does anybody ever come up with a strategy on a plan, what you can do to, I don't know, encourage?
So we do have, the process is laid out pretty clearly, like they get the warning and then we have a meeting. sometimes we have a meeting without the student or the parent because they don't show up for the meeting, but we do outline plans at those meetings. We have a dropout prevention committee that meets and we talk about like, how do we get these kids back in school? How do we get them to come to school? So we never give up on a student, but it's individualized plans depending on the circumstance and how it's working with the family.
Thank you. Any other board member comments? I forgot we're going into executive session. Oh, enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 405D for discussion and consideration at the administrative contract. Could I have a motion, please? And a second. Roll call.
Dawn,
Yeah.
Larry, Joy, Kathleen,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Natalie,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Deanna.
Yes.
Hey, guys, do I just stay on this link?
All right, and you're on publicly? Okay, all right, good. Could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, and Natalie's gone? All right. Should I roll call or should it, no, all in favor? No action. All right, thank you, good night.